In 2021, I was hired by Ali Abdaal to write his YouTube scripts. But 4 years later, Google AI tells me that what I'm known for in relation to Ali is making recurring jokes about his bins. And you know what? It's not wrong. In the past year, I have become obsessed with Ali Abdaal's bins. I've written newsletters about them, made Instagram reels about them. I've even talked about them in multiple group workshops to hundreds of people, including Ali's own community. But the question is, why? Well, the truth is, the way Ali talks about bins in his YouTube videos actually reveals one of the most powerful scriptwriting principles that most YouTubers, including Ali, get completely wrong. This is a video of Ali's called 17 Cheap Purchases That Save Me Time, and one of the items on the list is the infamous bin. Now, sure, some people, not me, I hasten to add, but some people might argue that including a bin on a list like this is somewhat banal. Not me, specifically not me, I'm not saying that. But that's kind of besides the point, because what I want you to pay attention to here is the way, and I really mean this, the way he talks about the bin. Let's just take a look.
Item number 3 is something I swear by, and it's having a cheap dustbin in every single room. So I have one in this room, in the bathroom, in my bedroom. There's one in the kitchen. There's one small one in the living room. And the great thing about a cheap $5 to $10 bin is that it means you can chuck stuff without having to go to a room that has a bin in it. Super, super time saving.
So why exactly was this a problem? Well, this brings me on to the most important structural framework for keeping an audience's attention in any YouTube video. Because I think of every single YouTube video like this. So starting out, we have the thumbnail. Now, obviously this is not strictly part of the video structure, but it does flow naturally into the next thing, which is of course your hook. Now, after the hook, I like to break down a video into segments. And these really can be anything. There can be any number of segments in a video. There might be something like 7 to 10 in a standard YouTube video. But maybe after the first couple, we have a call to action. This could be anything like a product placement plug, a sponsored plug, or a lead magnet, something like that. Then after the call to action, we might go back into our segments, say segments 3 and 4, and then we'll finish with an end screen call to action. Going forwards, I want you to picture every video like this. And it's amazing how you'll start to notice it across pretty much any video that's taking off. But the key thing here, and where Ali makes a major mistake, is in how to structure an individual segment. These orange sections on here, segment 1, 2, 3, and 4, or however many we have, individually, how do we structure those segments and how does Ali do it badly? And by the way, if you're curious about how I'm recording this, go and check out Teller. It's like Loom, but it's much sexier and it makes delivering presentations like this super easy and looks super slick with zero effort. Now, when it comes to breaking down these individual segments, I like to think of them in 3 distinct phases. We're going to talk about what those phases are now. Let's take an example of this video from Mr. Who's the Boss. It's called I Spent $10,000 on Kickstarter Tech. This is not a video that I had anything to do with. It's just an example that shows this being done really, really well. Now in this video, Mr. Who's the Boss is talking about Kickstarter products that he backed, and he's now receiving those products and reviewing them to see if they're worth it. Now, as we can see here, the first phase of this segment talking about product number 1 begins like this. He says, kicking things off with the very cheapest one, the roll order. And I can't actually believe I backed this product. Now, in this first phase, not only is Mr. Who's the Boss setting up the product itself, but he's doing it in a way that is particularly interesting to his audience. Notice in red here, he raises the curiosity by saying that it's the very cheapest one. That immediately has connotations for me as the viewer. I'm thinking, oh, it's the cheapest. Does that mean it's the worst? Or maybe he's going to subvert my expectations and it's going to be cheap, but really surprisingly good. In any case, my brain is coming alive with these sorts of questions. And he says then afterwards, I actually can't believe I backed this product. And now I'm doubly wondering, okay, I need to hear more about this. What is going on? Why can't he believe that he backed this product? And so overall, as you might imagine, what he's doing in phase 1 is the setup. He's setting up the product and the things we should be interested in about that product. Now, moving into the second phase here, what Aaron is doing is a little bit longer. This is, as you can see, the longest phase, so I haven't quoted the entire thing, but broadly speaking, he does this. He tells the story of how he backed the product on Kickstarter, he didn't receive it, and then later found the company was selling it on Amazon. Now, by doing this, what he's doing, as I've written here, is that he's gradually revealing the details of the story, setting the scene, but all the while we're still wondering, is this product actually any good? Like, I don't know the answer to that question yet. Then he moves on to the product itself, talking about the pros and the cons, how it works, etc., etc. And now we're moving towards his verdict, which is ultimately what we are wanting to find out about. Now, the best way to summarize this longer middle phase here is tension. He's building tension about the product. He's revealing information gradually. He's keeping the audience on their toes. Then moving forward into the final phase here, This is really quite simple. He finishes by saying, fundamentally, products like this have already been made by other companies, and I think they've done it better. Now, as you might imagine, what he is doing here is generating the payoff. This is where we finally understand what he thinks about the product, whether or not we should buy it, and we feel satisfied we've got our answer, and we can move on to the next segment of the video. So that is how I think about an individual segment of a YouTube video. It's setup, tension, and payoff over and over again, approximately every 1 to 2 minutes, depending on your niche. If you're making really, really long videos, it might be that they are longer than this, but certainly an 8 to 12 minute video, you want these payoffs to be felt at least every couple of minutes. So what I'm going to do is break down what Ali said clause by clause and try my best to label each clause with either setup, tension, and payoff so that you can see that it's not exactly coming out in the proper order. First up, he says, number 3 is something I swear by. And this is really a setup. I mean, it kind of works, right? No problem so far. But then he says, and it's having a cheap dustbin in every single room. And as you can see by what I've written here, what he's done is given us the payoff immediately. And following that, he then goes into this and he says, so I have one in this room, one in the bathroom, one in my bedroom, there's one in the kitchen, there's one small one in the living room. I mean, I guess, is this like tension? Kinda, particularly tense knowing which rooms he has bins in. I'd never personally wondered that, but I kind of assumed he probably did have a few bins around his place. And then he goes on to say, and the great thing about a cheap $5 to $10 bin is that it means you can chuck stuff, and I'm not making this up, without having to go to a room that has a bin in it. I wouldn't have believed it if this didn't literally exist on the internet. But in any case, he's still going. I don't know what this is anymore. It's not setup. It's not tension. We've done the payoff. It's like it's nothing. It's not anything. And then he says super time saving, which is great to know. Really good to know. I've got it now. Now I'm going to go straight out and buy myself a bin. So I think by now you can probably see the problem. Revealing the payoff at the start and then just talking about it for ages is a huge problem for retention. Now, in a minute, I'm going to rewrite this so you can see how it should be formatted to follow this retention optimizing structure. But before I do that, we need to understand why this is even a problem. And here's the thing. After 4 years of studying retention graphs from hundreds of students, dozens of clients, I've found that the same retention problems crop up time and time again. Now, the hook, as you might imagine, is where we always see the biggest retention dip. But after that, the next most common area where retention dips occur is between one payoff and the following segment's setup. Now, I call these moments transitions. And the problem is, the longer gap we leave, the longer these transitions are, the longer the viewer has to start wondering, wait, where is this video actually going? So the problem with delivering a payoff right at the start of a segment and then talking about it for the next minute means the viewer isn't actually learning anything new, and nor do they have a sense of where the video is going next. We're in this kind of limbo. And at all costs, we do not want to leave our viewer in that limbo. So with that said, and on this most stupid of examples, let's rewrite this segment discussing the virtues of Ali's bins. We're going to say something like this. Next, let's talk about one of the biggest productivity killers that everybody suffers from, but nobody talks about. Now, whether we've got old piles of paper lying around on our desks, or even just a banana skin that we're too lazy to go to the kitchen and throw away, it's super easy to end up with a messy desk when we're busy. And the problem this causes for our productivity is, insert productivity fact about having a messy workspace. I don't know, it's not my area of expertise, but I think there's research on it. Have a clean desk, apparently you get more productive. And then we would finish by saying, that's why item number 3 is having a rubbish bin in every room. It'll save you time, make each room tidier, and stop your productivity from halving. Now, of course, this is still a really bizarre topic to put in a YouTube video. I'm not denying that, I can't change that, but the structure that we've just implemented, think how much more powerful that feels versus saying item number 3 is a bin and here's a short presentation I've prepared on why bins are so good. So on your next script, before you film, go back over it and look out for any payoffs that might have snuck their way in a little bit too early. And you'll usually find that not a lot actually needs to change in your script except finding a creative way to move that payoff to the end. But what about the elephant in the room here? I mean, Ali's doing all right, isn't he? He's doing pretty well. Well, here's the thing. Having spent a year working for Ali, sitting in on recording sessions and watching him just be Ali, you start to realize he's something of an outlier himself. His years of camera experience kind of mask structural problems like these. And not to mention, there are plenty of examples of creators who appear to break the rules of YouTube and yet still continue to grow, but that's because their audience have come to expect a certain type of content from them. When it comes to YouTube, there are always unicorns, but that doesn't mean that modeling their approach is going to work for you. In my experience, the best approach is to start from a place of good practice, core frameworks and simple rules, then gradually push those boundaries, break more rules, and experiment. Now, setup, tension, payoff is one of the most important scriptwriting frameworks for retention, but it's not the only framework I've seen my clients overlook. So check out this video next, where I'll walk you through the 7 most essential scriptwriting hacks I wish I'd known sooner, so you can keep your viewers hooked from start to finish.